Guys, what's going on? I'm with @Real Matt Wenning.
What's up,
Boom. Had a great time. First time here at Ludus Magnus Gym. We're going to let some of you guys float in, and we'll have this video up on YouTube. But had a great time. This is the first time at your gym, and actually we've known each other for so long because we were on Elite FTS Q&A.
15 years probably.
Yep, long time ago, before I even owned my first facility. So it's just really cool to see I call it, like, there's a book out called An Iron Will, and it's like, if, you know, he who does not advance does not conquer. Like, you'll fall back. So what's great is to see everything that you're doing, not just, you know, you took your knowledge and skills in powerlifting and it's going really worldwide. People traveling here from all around for the seminars, creating equipment, and just really your uniqueness and just, you know, being creative with it. I think it's awesome. You must feel inspired with everything that you got going on.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, you know, it's nice to start seeing all the stuff you worked hard for the last decade.
Yep.
You know, I mean, 2008, I wanted my own gym. I wanted to be, you know, known or renowned for knowing how to train as hard as I knew how to train, and some of the modifications I made along the way. And then after a while, you just put one foot in front of the other. You know, like we were talking about, I don't try to make my business world class in a year. I try to just take 2 steps forward every 6 months. Yeah. You know, something small. Hey, I need to do this. I need to do that. And then everything starts to, when you look back, now you're 10 miles ahead of where you were.
Inch by inch, brick by brick.
You know what taught me that was lifting. I wasn't genetically gifted. I just worked my ass off.
Right. That's why we call this the Strong Life Podcast, because I oftentimes say, like, lifting and training, it didn't just change my life, but it like saved my life. It gave me a life. And I think so many people, whatever struggles you have, the common day-to-day stuff that we get stressed out about, I feel like if you could apply lifting to life, you're going to move forward. And like you said, you're not trying to, a lot of people throw around the term world domination, conquer the world. I think sometimes it's like you're talking crazy. I think the most important thing is, like, how can I change somebody's life with the information that I'm putting out?
Conquer what you can reach.
Conquer yourself.
Conquer yourself and what you can reach in your own environment.
Yeah.
I think the other big thing with that too is just understanding that, you know, with lifting, it teaches you how valuable time is.
Yes.
So, you know, we understand that in a year is a small period of time, but in reality, every day adds up and adds up and adds up. And are you progressing, regressing, or maintaining? Because there's only 3 ways you can go, and maintaining eventually regresses.
That's what I was going to say. Like, if you're not getting, what's the saying? You're not getting better.
You're getting worse.
You're getting worse. So a big part of, like, this trip for me was, you know, I wasn't even going to come out to Ohio. Rutgers, we got the Division I Nationals going on this weekend, starting tomorrow. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to take the trip. And my wife's like, you should take the trip. And I started thinking to myself, you know what? I need to go and, like, push my inspiration, push my knowledge. And just when I said I'm going to come and visit Matt, it made me train harder. And I felt like for me to show up, I'm going to eat better. I try to, like, trick myself. I say inspiration's everywhere. I don't struggle to find it. So I was like, all right, if I'm going to go visit Matt, then I'm going to eat better, and I'm going to follow through on shit so I don't show up. And he's like, this guy's a fraud. He's, you know, writing about it or blogging about it. And I always say, like, don't talk about it, be about it. So I'm getting out of my...
you know, probably when I was younger, I had that fault where I would not judge, but I would weigh people's worth by what they can handle. And now I realize that all of us have different backgrounds, and that I have, at a better sense, mastered the lifting. So now, when I see somebody that's doing something incorrectly or not as strong as me, it's like, you would be a project for me to make your shoulder better and make your bench better. It's not like, oh, look at this guy.
Right.
It's, I want to make him better.
Yeah.
You know, but that's probably why I'm a good coach.
Lift others up. Don't, you know, help them up. Don't put them down. What was really cool is we trained, and I guess how many of those guys are interning with you in the group that we trained with?
Guys taping right now, Isaiah is the intern, but the rest of them are training partners or clients.
Right. So it was cool that I wasn't coaching anybody. Like, when you're coaching all the time, I started coaching 2002, and I've had very few days off, minus a Sunday or a 1-week vacation. So to be in a group where people are saying, hey, move that bar down an inch. Hey, why don't you try this? Do this with your hand. I always say, like, those little details, they're so powerful and beautiful. And I've always loved that stuff. Like I came here and I was like, Matt, I need to buy your book. So we got the Minimal Training Manual, Physical Training for Tactical Populations, which is, and then we got the Conjugate Training DVD. For me, it's like if I'm not learning and I'm not getting better, then to me it's a disservice to being a coach. Yeah. Like I gotta get better to make these kids better.
Yeah, the other thing too is that you've been in the game as long as I have, and you realize that nobody's created anything new. But sometimes, this is what I learned from Paul Quinn, is like, he's like, I know everything that you're saying in these manuals, and I forgot 25% of it, forgot to use it. And that's the thing is, once you get so well read and you're so well trained and you've practiced everything, you tend to start getting in your own funk if you're the lead man at your place.
Yes.
So what I always do is outreach to guys like you, guys like Charles, and say, hey, what do you think of this? Well, what did you think about that? What did you think about that? Where I started getting those tempos for speed work was Charles. Yeah. Charles like, why don't you throw in eccentrics, change your speed on the eccentrics? Never would even, and not that I didn't know it, but I had never thought of it because I was in my own fucking funk.
You need you need to get out of your own head.
So what I say is my cycle, my training is a mixture of my experience, my education, and then my influences of Louis, Vogelpool, Halbert, your old stuff, Charles Poliquin, Mark Verstegen, Istvan Bali, right? Zatsiorsky, Verkhoshansky, which I've had numerous emails back and forth with those guys, which I was really lucky to.
Right.
Because coming from Kramer's school, Kramer worked with Zatsiorsky, so I had an in with him.
Yeah.
And then Verkhoshansky was looking at stuff I was doing online and emailed me. So if you look up Verkhoshansky.com, you're going to see us talking back and forth
on that old forum around 05.
What nobody realized was after that forum, we were talking privately, email, to where his daughter could speak English and Russian.
Yes, I remember this. You were writing a lot about Conjugate on Elite, and this was around 05, I think, maybe a little earlier.
04, 05.
Yep. I can't remember what the name of that forum was, but back before Facebook, before MySpace, there were forums, and there was a lot of great engagement among the coaches. I think back then there was, not as much collaboration as there is today, which
it was harder to collaborate.
Correct.
So unless you were going to the same conferences and had person-to-person, well, Verkhoshansky didn't know English.
That's right. Yeah.
So his daughter had to translate everything.
Yep.
But man, we had some great conversations because what was more interesting is he wanted to know what I was doing.
Interesting.
More so because his block periodization was a little bit more linear than I would have expected the Russians to look at things.
Right.
But he was telling me that A.S. Mevdiev was the one that was coming up with these crazy rotation cycles from watching Alexiev. But he was basing all of his shit on track.
Yeah.
So when he was doing his Olympic riding, it was a lot of track and field. And he's like, I had to do it that way because I was using Olympic lifting to get sports better, not Olympic lifters.
Correct. So some weird experience I've had. I don't even know if you know this, but my father was born in Romania.
Okay.
And then he moved to Israel when he was, I think, 11 or 12. And my grandparents, I was born in Israel, so we would go there, and I went there when I first started working out. It was the summer before high school. This is a crazy story, but I used this experience to apply it to training. And I tell my grandfather, I'm 13 and a half, I tell him if I don't work out, my muscles will shrink. I'm 120 pounds. So I'm bothering him, and then he goes, okay, there's a guy in town named Andre. He has a gym in his house, and it was basically the downstairs of his house, and there was weights in the bedrooms. So there was no couches, it was weights. And this guy was a Romanian weightlifter who left Romania when my father did. He was on the Romanian weightlifting team.
Badass.
And he had a squat rack out in the corner. And I still remember, this is the summer of 1989, seeing him doing Olympic lifting, but not what we see today. You see guys locking it out. I saw him doing 5 split jerks, high speed, squat jumps with a barbell on his back, hang cleans, deep back squats. This is 89. You never heard of
very Verkhoshansky thought pattern.
Right, so it all came full circle.
Clustering,
doing some very high speed stuff versus locking it out. He didn't teach anybody. He let everybody do his own thing. He stayed in the corner. And you're talking about seminars. So 1989, that's Andre, weightlifting. I speak at North Carolina State Strength Growth Clinic in maybe '08. And do you know Istvan Yavarek?
I've heard of his
Yep.
name.
So he was doing a lot of barbell complexes and a lot of jumping. He was at a community college. And I tell him the story, and he's like, holy shit, that was my weightlifting teammate when we were in Romania, but when we both left the country during communism, we lost touch. So my dad got them back in touch 40-something years later.
Wow.
But I try to pick up on all these things. Like recently somebody gave me about 100 old Health and Strength magazines, Ironman magazine, and it's a lot of those powerlifters that you speak about from the 70s and 80s.
Yep.
And back then, Ironman had a weightlifting and powerlifting section as well as bodybuilding.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like
everything runs in cycles. Those guys knew more than what we thought they did.
Mm-hmm.
The Soviets just had a lot more government backing to study it.
Right.
Because we went into studying cardiovascular,
Correct.
swimming and biking and running. But the Soviets started looking at it as a calculation and saying, with all the weight classes in lifting and all the sprinting capabilities in track and everything that's powerful, if we understand power, we can win more medals. And that's exactly why the Soviets went to Olympic lifting. It wasn't to have us say, well, we're stronger than you. It's we can win more medals because there's more Olympic sports that are anaerobic.
Yeah, they were
so
dominating.
They needed to understand anaerobic sport.
They were dominating for so long. Sometimes I wonder if, like now with the whole thing with the doping, sometimes I even wonder if the athletes even know if they're doping or not.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the big thing with all that shit coming about is that, we have to remember that America is the huge entity of drugs. We give everybody drugs for diabetes and tell them don't watch to eat.
That's
we
right.
give them drugs for sinus infections versus finding out if they're allergic to gluten or dairy.
Yeah.
All these other things. So what we do is it's almost a cop-out, I think, for the United States to go, well, back then and now, those guys they're dope. Well, I'm like,
that's why they were.
Motherfucker, they are way smarter than us.
Yeah.
And they studied shit and put money in the right areas to
Their
study.
their sport code, like I relate to this because I wrestled. When I train the wrestlers, my mind can work in a much more dialed in fashion than if I was training, another sport I was involved in.
I never use an excuse. I think there's two things you can't use an excuse for because you don't know. And
Correct.
One of them is that you can't use. I never had an excuse if I ever got beat at a world class meet. Never use an excuse, well, that guy's taking more drugs or on drugs. I never use an excuse if somebody's fucking smarter than me. Because if I want to get smarter at something, I'll sit down and read until I'm smarter at it.
Right.
It's how much do you want to put in. How many people truly go to 100% of their genetic potential and then realize they can't compete? Fucking zero.
Well, many,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, many. It's oftentimes like somebody like me. Probably why I'm so passionate about coaching is because I realize the psychological and training mistakes I made.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say stuff to the athletes, I tell them, I go, this is what I say to my kids. So my daughter is real big in tennis, and she competes in an older age group. So she got into this habit when she went to the older age group, when they'd walk out, oh, how old are you? Like she would let, oh, you're 14, that means you're probably going to have to beat me. And I told my daughter, I said, listen, it doesn't matter. There's freshmen beating seniors in high school wrestling. You just got to go, and the mindset is huge.
You train against better people, you will become better.
Correct.
Whatever that level is. But I always try to tell people, don't make excuses for where you're at. Put your work in.
Yes.
And if you do that, you'll make it as far as you're supposed to make it.
Right.
I never intended, when I was 20 years old and I was already a national caliber lifter, I never intended that I'd ever make it to world records. But all I did was kept my head down, kept putting one step in front of the other, and I made it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of what's cool is you share how you moved out here from Indiana. You share the story of when you were a kid. You were in basically like a cast from the waist down for a year. And that's important because a lot of people, even me, when I injured my shoulder, it was like, well, shit, I can't do this, I can't do that. And what happened was I said, well, I can't be a weak coach, I can't be a weak father. I just found a way to come up with a reason versus an excuse. And then that's why I'm always inspired to get smarter, because I selfishly make myself better. And I'm okay with that. Like, I get better, and then I make everybody else, I try to get them better by learning more.
Step your game up, and what you realize is the lack of quality information is not you know, a deficiency now.
Correct.
If you know where to look.
Yep.
What the deficiency in now is fucking motivation and long-term thought process. That is the problem right now.
Right.
You know?
Why do you think it is? Because it's...
I think because
it's
everybody's
easier
sold.
to
I think
access.
everybody's sold on TV and internet that everything's a 10-week fix.
Correct.
You know, Biggest Loser. How much weight can you lose in 30 days? How much weight can you keep off for 5 years?
Yes.
That's the real fucking goal.
Yeah, that's really when
But
it
we
starts
always
getting...
talk about, you know, don't overestimate what you can do in a year, and don't underestimate what's possible in 5.
Yeah.
And what I found was weightlifting taught me that if I wanted to be the best, or up at the best, that I was going to have to put in a lot of work for a lot of years, and I was okay with that.
Right.
But most people look at that as a mountain that's just unclimbable, instead of just putting your head down and just one step.
Time goes so
step.
fast.
Yeah, because I blink my eye, and I just got out of grad school, and it's been almost 15 years ago since I got out of grad school.
It seems like yesterday. When I look at like a kid graduating high school, and I'm like, whoa. Seems like yesterday when he was in 6th grade. Well, the kids we train, the best success is the kid that doesn't stop training and had a long, like, you know,
and
went
low
through
injury rate.
Long term. Yeah. So it's like I always say, I'm playing the long game. I'm not trying to build you into a.
You got to be smart and know when to hit the throttle and when to back it off.
Yeah.
And you also got to be in it the long term. If you're in those two areas and you understand those things, your potential is limited, you know, or unlimited. You can go as far as you want to go. It's just you have to have, for some people, I think it's hard for some people to see a genetically gifted guy come right out of the bat and bench 405,
right,
and they're struggling at 225.
Yeah.
We all struggled at 220. Actually, just had that interview with George Halbert.
Uh-huh.
His first bench press, he did 95 pounds.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a light kid, but my point is he started somewhere.
Yes.
And everybody has to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And everybody has stress, and everybody has a family issue, and everybody has
Correct.
a job, and everybody
Right.
has kids or whatever. But the point is that do you just step up and do it, or do you make an excuse to why somebody else is more successful than you? Everybody has the same amount of time.
Truth.
In a day.
That's the good to great difference. Like when we talk about this training and the Russians, the Cuban wrestlers are doing really great. And somebody snapped a photo of their weight room, and it was like a chin-up bar, and it was like a crappy barbell.
Yeah.
And when we could always say, like Chris, who was just here from Liberty, he's like, the weight room for the wrestlers was gone. He goes, so I just made sandbags, and I made the sleds from the tires, and I found a way. And I always say, sometimes the beauty isn't that the strength is in the imperfection.
Yep.
That's what makes it better.
If you usually want to know if a weight room has anything for you, the nicer the worse it is.
Yeah.
If it's nice, there's no work done in there.
True.
So it has to. I think the colleges need to start slowly getting out of this ooh and ah you with our facility versus ooh and ah me with what you know and what you can do in there.
Yes.
You know? And that's the biggest issue. Like, I love it when I walk in here because it feels like work.
Work.
You can smell the work.
Yeah.
You can just, the aura of it is hardcore.
Smelly and Jesse came out to Jersey before he was doing a lot of the internet stuff. We couldn't give the seminar away. I swear to you. I laughed to him. I go, hey, here's a photo from the best seminar nobody ever knew about. And I remember when Mark came into that gym, he's like, man, it smells like work in this place. And a lot of the kids and their parents loved it because it was so imperfect and it was so tough. And I think that's what made those kids great, is that became their normal. And I try to, you probably do this as well, Matt, just from always changing your training, but I'm always careful to not let myself get comfortable in things, whether do I turn the heat on in the gym when I'm training myself, because I'm always so afraid to just start becoming normal. That's a fear of mine.
Yeah, and I think you have to have that fear constantly. And it's not necessarily having a fear of normal. It's having a fear of, you slowly have to test yourself a little bit all the time.
Just a little.
And it doesn't have to be a ton.
Nothing crazy.
You don't have to make a 100-pound PR, but you need to test yourself with something every day.
Yeah.
Educationally, physically.
Yeah. Like the learning. So you did the podcast with George, and I don't know who was listening in, but he mentioned, maybe it was Rob talking about his shoulder pain, and George showed him one band exercise, and then I went into YouTube and typed George Halbert shoulder, and watched all of his videos, and I asked Matt, I go, Matt, can you find it for me? And then I said to myself, why am I asking Matt to find it for me? I'll find it. And I watched all of his shoulder videos and found it. Yeah, and found more.
And to be honest with you, I didn't know which ones you were talking about, and I had to go look them up myself anyway.
Right, so I found that shoulder exercise plus multiple others.
Yeah, and I think that's another big thing you want to, a point that Zach's making is, if you're emailing me or him, and you're asking us stuff on training, make sure that you look into it for yourself first, because we're much more apt to give you a very detailed information if it shows you've already given some of that time and effort that we would have to take being your personal librarian, and you went and looked and say, hey Matt, I watched this episode on YouTube of George Halbert doing this and that. Point is, his example is that I probably was really busy, didn't have time to look it up, and wasn't ignoring him. He went and looked it up for himself and found it and actually showed me something that I didn't know. But the point is if you're bringing something to the table like, hey, I've been studying this for like a week and I'm trying to figure this out, we tend to have a lot more respect for your question.
And you have respect for yourself and pride because you did work. To me, I'm like such a big believer in work ethic that when you do something, you take pride. You take pride in figuring it out. So
Charles accidentally probably does the same thing to me. Like if I ask him a question, he can't get to it. And I was thinking, man, is he fucking ignoring me, or is he? But you know what he was doing? He was making me dig it up himself. And then I found 10 more things that I didn't know.
And now you're better.
Right.
He made you better. And I think that's also the key is if you can't surround yourself physically with the people, I don't know where Charles lives. He's in Canada. Colorado. Well, I can communicate with them to be inspired. So let's close it out here.
Yeah, I said we ask maybe, you say,
anybody got a
3
question?
or 4 questions? Any
All
questions?
right. There's people on here. Let's see if any are rolling in.
I found a lot of people also don't have the discipline to watch the whole thing. They want to, and I think that's important to set aside time and discipline yourself and lock in to learn something.
Mm-hmm. Especially now with just the way it's so easy to listen in on people and things. I couldn't have imagined if I'd have had this type of power.
Correct.
As far as the power to find information now.
Yeah.
So fast is like, man, I would have learned training. I would have learned how to train so much quicker.
Right. And sometimes I think the ease and the easy access, people don't respect it as much. We got questions.
Johnny Yanks said that was great, guys. I don't have any questions.
Johnny Yanks watched it in full. He's dedicated, that guy. He's a regular.
Shout out to Johnny Yank.
Nice.
Got a few people just joining in.
Any of you guys got questions for Matt?
Said thanks for taking the time.
Yep.
That's RJ Hild 66.
Yep. Bob, yes. What's up, Bob?
Yeah. People just saying, people are just saying thanks. So apparently they learned a lot of stuff.
Get a hold of Zach for any. I know you do some online training.
Yeah, I don't do too. Honestly, I have the group, but I think that like if somebody wanted something unique to that, like strength endurance stuff, that's where I work with them. If somebody's looking for the way Matt, I would never say, yes, I'm the best. If I know somebody better, I automatically defer out. So the Strong Life Podcast, wenningstrength.com, and at Real Matt Wenning on Instagram.
Yeah,
sure.
Badass.
Good, guys. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you guys.
Glad to have you out, man.
Awesome. Had a blast.
Yeah, dude.
Thanks, brother.